Hey, welcome to the Thursday Checkdown. I'm your host, Greg Kellogg. My normal co-host, Tipp Major, has issues. His girlfriend's car broke down and his daughter has softball practice, so he's got to run her out there. So if he comes on, it'll be late, but we're not expecting him tonight. Instead, we've got a special guest, Brandon Haye of Dynasty League Football. We're going to talk about his history in the hobby and get into Dynasty a little bit. How you doing, Brandon?
I'm doing great on it. It's a great Thursday, just a couple months away from Thursday night football, so it's all good.
Oh, it's great. Yeah. And July 6th, live Scott Fishbowl draft in Houston for me. August 9th through 11th, I'm going to the Fantasy Football Expo in Canton. You going there, Brandon?
I will be there. I just bought my ticket today.
Well, very good. We'll meet there. Hang out with the TSA crew. We'll have a booth, and we're going to get together for dinner at least one of the nights. Join us. You're welcome to.
Oh, well, thank you for the invitation. That'd be great.
All right. So we've got JC in the background. Tip, like I said, Tip's out. Terrible thunderstorms last night. We lost power and internet for a while. And then Iggy's got bad storms now, and I think I want to say he's a Packers fan, but I think he's in the Denver area. So apparently they're having some storms up that way. And, JC's up in Minneapolis. He seems to be doing good anyway. So, but how can you be doing good in Minneapolis? It's freaking cold up there. Hey, Mel, we got Mel in the chat room with us. I'm kind of watching that and doing this. So we're going to get started. Basically, the purpose of this segment during the season, we'll be doing 4 segments. We'll do news and notes with a special look at injury and practice reports because we want to help you set your lineups. We'll do Put Me in Coach, a brand new segment where we're going to tell you guys that are not typical starters. In other words, they're not top 12 quarterback or tight end or top 24 running back or wide receiver. We're going to tell you to start them, and we're going to track how we did. And we're going to do our studs to sit, which is where we tell you those top 12 players to sit. And we'll track that again. I looked at the playoffs. We had a 79% hit rate during last year's fantasy playoffs in studs to sit, telling you top 12 players to take out of your lineup. That's not too shabby. We had 62.5% for the whole season, which, again, is not too shabby when you're saying, you've heard it. Always start your studs. Worst advice in the world. It's the worst advice in the world. So, Brandon, how long have you been playing fantasy football?
Yeah, so I started in high school in 2002. When I first started playing, it was with some friends in a church ministry group. So we would actually rent out one of the rooms in the church and have our fantasy draft on the ESPN app then. It's come so far, and now there wasn't as much, information back then and everything. It was just, from what I had watched football and everything. So it's been a long time and a long journey, to this point.
Yeah, I've got a really good friend that you may have heard of. He's Wendy's best friend forever, BFF, Bob Harris. And I go back to the days where he used to send out his TFL update report using facsimile. I mean, I would literally call him at night and he would have to stop the fax to talk to me. I didn't know he was doing that or I wouldn't have called him. But
Right.
Bob's coined the phrase, it used to be you had to search for data. Now you have to filter it because there's just so much of it. So it's changed a lot. Now you talk about ESPN. There wasn't ESPN. There wasn't Yahoo Sports. My fantasy league was a computer application, not an online application at the time. And there was a program called Couch Coach we used. It's changed a lot. We didn't have live scoring. When live scoring came, that was a generational change in the hobby. So you got started with the church group and some high school friends. How did you get started writing?
Yeah, so it actually started during the time around COVID. Had a lot of extra time on my hands. I've been playing fantasy for a while, making my own kind of thoughts and everything, but not like writing. And I saw someone that actually, it's another site I work for. It's called the League Winners, and they had a post out. I responded to them, wrote a little sample, and then now I've been doing it for about 3 years.
Okay. I started writing in the 90s. Whole different world then. When I started drafting, everybody did stud running back. You would have literally 80, 90% of the teams would draft 3 running backs in the first 5 rounds. All right. Because you had to get running backs and everybody else was grabbing. I came back from a 6-year hiatus where I had retired, haven't even watched the NFL, and people are doing this thing called zero running back. Now, to me, that's crazy talk. I can't do that. Do you draft zero running back or do you use hero running back, best player? What's your modus operandi?
So I've kind of changed a little bit. A few years ago, when I got in quite a few, dynasty drafts, I was going with the zero running back strategy, just because I really like like drafting the wide receivers. So my thought was, if I just get like 3 or 4 really, say 3 of the top 20 wide receivers, and then kind of get some running backs that that are the backups but could really do well if the starters go down. So that worked well, and then it bit me kind of a couple times. So now I don't necessarily know what it would be called, but I'd probably go running back at least in the first 5 rounds, but I definitely very rarely start with running back in the first round.
All right. So to me, if I get CMC, I'm getting CMC because he's guaranteed points. I looked at a couple drafts, and one of them in particular, 8 wide receivers, 9 wide receivers, 3 running backs in the first round. The running backs that went were CMC, Breece Hall, and Bijan Robinson. 7 or 8 running backs in the second round, 3 or 4 wide receivers. 7 or 8 wide receivers in the second round, 3 or 4 running backs. Basically, if you don't go wide receiver, and even if you do, you're not getting 3 of the top 20 unless you hit on somebody that's not expected to be in the top 20. They're just going too hot and heavy, and the values are at running back and tight end. Now, I'm always looking for a difference maker. Last year in Scott Fishbowl, with the 5th overall pick, I took Travis Kelce. Now, he didn't perform up to the expectation that I wanted, but he still played all year. And he still, I think he missed 2 games, but literally he was still a top tight end. I did hurt wide receivers a little bit because I went heavy running back. This year, I'm probably going to go running back, wide receiver in the first 2 rounds, 1 of each. If I can get Kelce in the middle of the 3rd round, I'm taking it. And then I have to decide round 4. I'm going to wait till the 7th round for a quarterback because there's so many good ones that are going that late. You think that's a viable formation in a dynasty startup?
Yeah, I think that could be viable. It all depends. Obviously, if you're doing 1 quarterback or super flex, in super flex, sometimes if quarterbacks really go fast in the first round, I kind of change my strategy like midway. But if it's one quarterback, then you could. There are a lot more quarterbacks now, especially with this crop coming in as rookies. So I think it truly would depend where your threshold is at quarterbacks that you feel comfortable being, that being your first quarterback. Because it could be like a Jared Goff type or something like that. If you feel comfortable with that, that strategy would work.
Yeah, J.J. McCarthy. I'm a Michigan fan, and I truly believe he landed in the best spot. I don't trust Daniels, and I really don't trust Caleb Williams to have big years as rookies. Now, I think they're both fine quarterbacks, and if they survive their rookie season, they'll be good. But I think JJ is going – if you look at that Alabama game, he played as close to an NFL defense as he's going to see in college against Alabama. and he did extremely well in that game when his team was behind. So
I don't know if you can see in the background, but I have some of my Michigan memorabilia behind me. I'm a Michigan fan as
you're
well.
from Detroit, right?
No, I'm not from Detroit. But actually, the funny thing is the reason I'm a Michigan fan is because my dad's an Ohio State fan.
And that's a perfect reason. My dad was an Iowa fan. My mom went to Michigan State, got her master's at Michigan
Oh,
State.
wow.
The kids were Michigan fans. Number one, Michigan always won. I mean,
Right.
so that was a big benefit. But I love those winged helmets too. So the GOAT went to Michigan.
He did.
6th round draft pick, but he went to Michigan. So yeah, I got to ask you a little bit though. You've only been writing 3 years. That's not very long. Are you a member of the Fantasy Sports Writers Association?
I am not.
Why not, man? They do awards for writing.
They do. I'm not totally sure about the process of being a part of that.
Go to FSWA.org. Just
Okay.
follow the directions. It's easy.
I'll have to check into that.
Yeah, you do. And you can self-nominate your article. If you have an article that you think you made this outlandish call that hit, send it in. You just never know. I mean, it's an accolade. And I personally, I'm not a big fan of Superflex. The only reason I play in any Superflex leagues is because Scott Fish has it in the Scott Fish Bowl. And I'm going to support charity, and I'm going to support Scott because he's a friend. So I'll play in his Superflex, but man, I hate it. I'd much rather play a one quarterback league. Do you prefer Superflex?
I actually do because I feel like there can be different strategies that you can use. So like I did this strategy in the Dynasty League a couple years ago. It did not work. So I made some trades, and for my first 2 picks was Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. So I had the quarterbacks. I had like two of the, at the time, or probably still, 2 of the top 2 quarterbacks. But then the rest of the team were kind of, pieced together. But I think that's kind of the process. There's different strategies in Superflex where one quarterback, I mean, you can only play one quarterback. So there's really, you could take a quarterback early, but you can't really have any, I guess there's just more.
There's always guys on the waiver wire in single quarterback leagues.
Yes.
There's always somebody you can pick up if you have an injury. That's why I don't like Superflex. If you have 3 quarterbacks to cover your bye weeks, and the reason I say cover your bye weeks, I know Superflex, you can put in a running back or a wide receiver as your option instead of a second quarterback. But in most scoring systems, quarterbacks score more than the other positions. So if you're not playing 2 quarterbacks, you're putting yourself at a competitive disadvantage. So yes, there are different strategies, and you can design a scoring system that equalizes the positions somewhat anyway. But I just see it as artificially creating a shortage of a position. 12-team league, you can't have 3 quarterbacks on each team. And you're going to always have the one guy that goes out and gets 4 or 5, just because.
Well, yeah, but that person that gets 4 or 5, that means they're going to have a shortage at another position. So
absolutely.
So I mean, but I guess that's why I kind of like the strategy part, because they might be doing that for some sort of trade bait later on, or just to do it, so someone else has a shortage of quarterbacks, but then they might have a shortage. They might have a really bad tight end. They might have, not the depth at running back or wide receiver, and that's their decision. Whereas, someone else might get a quarterback early and then wait for a later quarterback and then really get, a very robust wide receiver group. I don't know. I guess I just like that. I think I might be in one league that plays one quarterback. I think all my other ones are super flex.
And I'm in one that plays super flex. All my others are single quarterback. Let me ask you this. You're a dynasty league specialist. How did you fall into that niche? How did you decide dynasty versus redraft versus best ball versus whatever? DFS. Do you do DFS?
I do a little. I don't really write on DFS.
Do you gamble? Do you play DFS?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I'm not very good at it, but I do play it occasionally.
So how did you fall into dynasty?
Like I said, I started in 2002 redraft. I started playing dynasty in 2016. I got a couple orphan teams just looking on. I think the football guys forum. There's one where they put teams and everything. I started that. I really liked it because I've always been big growing up playing Madden and doing the franchise mode and drafting players, picking players, and being the fake general manager. And I think that's what Dynasty does, in fantasy football. You get to control the team, you get to make picks, and see how, scout players, see how that all, falls in and if what you're looking at really works out. So that's how I kind of got into Dynasty. And then I think at the time when I started writing, I just was more focused on Dynasty. I think in general, the space was more focused on Dynasty. So I started writing that. And then I also am involved in Devi. So I wrote a lot of Devi articles as well.
Time out. All right. So Devi is new. And Devi is basically taking college players and stacking them on your bench until they're in the pros, right?
Correct.
Because you don't use their college stats for scoring.
So there is a format that you can. It's called Campus to Canton, which I've just recently started to a couple years ago, where you have a college team and a pro team. But for regular Devi, you're right. You just have them, waiting in the wings until they enter the NFL.
Okay. So I got to ask you, I kind of like I kind of eased into Dynasty via keeper leagues, 3-5-man keeper leagues. I like the idea of keeping some continuity on my team from year to year. I like Dynasty more because you live and die with your choices.
Right.
And if you screw up, it can take you years to rebuild it.
Definitely.
And if you're a serious fantasy footballer, you're going to spend those years doing it. You're not going to quit and dump your mess into somebody else's lap. Is there a strategy you use with your Devi players to help build for the future?
There is. Sometimes, so usually when there's Devi, it kind of depends, but for most Devi leagues I've been a part of, there will be a rookie draft each year, but it will be a mixed draft. So you can either pick, college players or players that are actually in the draft, and it's depleted because obviously some of the college players coming out are already on teams. So it's a different type of strategy. So some people will like to just pick those college players that will, that are coming out in the draft, they'll play right away. And then some, like, for example, one of my Devi drafts, the first pick was Jonathan Brooks. He was the best player at that certain time. So someone took him, but in another Devi draft where Jonathan Brooks was available too, they picked Jeremiah Smith, who's a freshman going to Ohio State as a wide receiver because they think he could be really good. So it's a couple different strategies to kind of do that. But what I kind of look at when I'm figuring out what Devi players I might want to pick is my position. So if, say, I'm getting older at running back, but I'm young everywhere else, I might decide to pick a running back that might not necessarily be as highly ranked as, say a quarterback or something, but I know I'm going to need to replace that position quicker than some of my other positions on my team.
So do you concentrate on the big five, or do you just look for, where do you find the information? There's information everywhere for fantasy football. There's not a lot of information for college players 3 years from now being a fantasy player.
Right. It's growing, but it's definitely not, the information isn't as readily available. So I've always been a bigger college football fan than NFL fan. I would say I really one of the reasons I watch so many NFL games is because of fantasy. Whereas college, I just enjoy watching the games. So just keeping up with players like that. I think it's just keeping up, just looking for whatever information you can, just seeing what teams are doing well in college football during the year, and kind of seeing what players are kind of doing well. And then if I see someone that I don't really know that much about, I might try to turn on some of their highlights or find some of the film of that game. And it's so much easier now with being able to DVR games, on your different systems. So that's what I really try to do. But it can be difficult to find those players, and I'm sure there's plenty of times where I miss on some of the players that I should be looking at.
Hey, we all miss on a lot of things on this, and this is a Hall of Famer talking. Nobody's perfect in this hobby. At this time, I would like to say, hey, folks, if you like what you're hearing, be sure to like and subscribe. Like the video, subscribe, leave us a comment on YouTube. I'll go out and check it later. Or if you leave us a comment on Twitter here, JC will bring it up so we can see it and answer it. But I do want to thank everybody that's here. Disco's here. Disco, if you like best ball drafts, you need every night. Well, he's doing it at 8 tonight, but normally at 7 p.m. Eastern, he does a best ball draft with drafters. And they're fun to watch, but he does it 5 nights a week, and I just can't do five best ball. Especially with a guy like Disco, who is a zero running back guy. He really is. But he's a great guy, and he's a lot of fun, and he gives away free entries into $2.5 million contest where the top prize is $500,000. So I'm going to tell you, Brandon, tune in. It's Big Draft Energy, and it's on YouTube Monday through Friday, usually 7 p.m. It'll be on at 8 right after our show.
Okay.
I got to ask you, though, if you were to name the top 3 Devy running backs for this year, guys that are still going to be in college this year, who are your top 3 right now?
Well, 2 actually play at that Team Ohio with Travion Henderson. And
you better say Donovan Edwards is the 3rd.
So I do not have Donovan Edwards as the 3rd. I like Donovan Edwards a lot, and I'm very interested to see how he does this year as the main running back. I think he has a skill set that would work very well in the NFL. I just need to see more consistency from him.
Yeah, I agree. But did you see him against Ohio State a couple of years ago when they lost Blake Corum?
Yes.
He ate them up.
He did. He has the speed, and I actually don't think Michigan uses him enough as a receiver. He is a very good receiver, and I think that's some of the things that he would do very well in the NFL.
Well, Michigan didn't throw the ball that much.
I know. That's why everyone was hating on JJ because
and that's stupid because if you watch JJ, he can make every throw. And
I know. I had plenty of arguments with people that said that he did not have good arm strength. I was like, I beg to differ. I've seen him throw plenty of throws. I think one of the things that I sometimes worried about with JJ was they were getting some games where you kind of get in a funk where if he's definitely a risk taker, he thinks he can throw the ball in there. And there are some games, if he missed some throws, you kind of get down on himself a little bit. Not
when
too
he makes
bad,
a mistake, it's a pick 6.
Yeah.
He makes the mistake in the wrong time.
Right.
But he threads the needle. He really hits small windows. And when he's on the move, there's not a better quarterback in college when they're on the move, when they're pressured and he's throwing out of rhythm. But they're going to see. JJ is going to be the top rookie quarterback this year in terms of fantasy points. I have no doubt about that.
So do you think he starts week 1?
I do. Why would you draft him in the top 10 picks and not start him?
Yeah, I think he'll play this year, but I think they might start off with Darnold. We'll obviously see. But yeah, it'll be very interesting. So you are not in on Caleb Williams at all?
I think Caleb Williams is a very talented athlete. I think he went to a team that has traditionally ruined good quarterbacks. I think he has a surrounding cast, people around him that don't help him. His father, for one. I think his attitude is questionable. The difference to me between Caleb and JJ will do whatever it takes to win. To him, he doesn't care if he has to hand the ball off 32 straight times. If that's what's going to win the game, he'll do it and he won't complain. Caleb Williams, can you imagine if USC had asked him to hand the ball off 32 straight times, what he would have said to the press? Caleb Williams does not have. I think he's very talented. Don't get me wrong. I think he'll be a good pro over time. But this rookie year, I mean, JJ's throwing Hawkinson not early, but later. Addison and Jefferson and Aaron Jones. I mean, that's about as good as it gets in terms of support.
Well, I actually really like what Chicago put around Caleb Williams. I think that's the only difference from the quarterbacks in the past they've had in Chicago, like Justin Fields, who I was a big fan of coming out, and I still think they set him up to fail. But I think they've got what the good part with some of the players they've got. They got players that can separate in Keenan Allen and DJ Moore. I actually like DeAndre Swift quite a bit on that.
Oh, I hate him. I hate him from his Detroit days. The guy plays soft. He just plays. I'll tell you what, you look at what DeAndre Swift did with one of the best offensive lines in football last year, and then you look and see what Saquon Barkley does with that same line this year. It's night and day. That's a guy you should be drafting, Saquon Barkley. I mean, he's in the perfect situation to succeed.
So you don't worry about the touchdowns, him not getting the amount of touchdowns because of Jalen Hurts.
No, I don't, because I don't think that they look a tush push. Fine, Hurts is going to get probably 6 to 8 touchdowns. I don't think he's getting 15 again, and I think they want to reduce the risk of injury to Hurts. So if they've got a running back who can power in. And Saquon Barkley is that. I don't think, DeAndre Swift was never great between the tackles, just never was. So if you look at Swift's career, he's injury prone. He little nicks will knock him out of a game. I think
you could say that about Saquon though too. He's missed large parts of seasons.
He has, but they've been legitimate injuries.
Well, I understand that, but an injury is an injury. I mean, if you look at it that way, if you miss time, you miss time, regardless.
That's true, but if you stub a toe and you miss a game, that's a little different than tearing a hamstring and missing a game.
No, I understand that, but for fantasy purposes, it all means the same. If they don't play, it all means the same.
I'm just saying, you look at DeAndre's numbers from last year, and at the end of this year, you compare Saquon and you tell me who you think is the better back.
Oh, I'm not saying that Saquon isn't the better back. I just think DeAndre Swift is a good player.
And I don't. I just don't. But then, again, disgruntled Lions fan.
Well, I mean, they've ruined a lot of. They've ruined a lot of running backs too. That had.
I know. They had this guy named Barry that did pretty good.
Hey, funny story. I'm glad you brought that up. Funny story. When I was younger, I did commercials, and I was actually in a Barry Sanders commercial that got played at NFL games.
Oh, cool! So you met Barry?
I did not. I actually didn't get to meet Barry. He wasn't there, but I got to be in the commercial, and I actually had a speaking role. They asked me.
You have video?
It's somewhere. I'm going to have to share it. I'm going to have to go to my parents and find it because they asked a bunch of us. They were like, "What do you describe Barry Sanders?" I said, "He's like a pinball," and they told me, "You got to say that." So at part of it, that's my phrase in the commercial.
Do you know who Andrew Cooper is? Matt Deutsch?
Yes.
Okay. They've known me for years. Okay. They came up to me at the expo and they wanted to interview me because I'd been gone for 6 years. And I just mentioned a story that I had heard about Barry and his dad. Who's the greatest running back in the history of the NFL? Now, I'm going to say Barry Sanders. All right. If his coaches had put Wayne Fonts put a fullback in front of Barry and used him on short yardage and goal line carries, Barry had 99 touchdowns and he came out on the goal line. Okay. If they'd have used him the way Emmitt Smith was used in Dallas, Barry would have had 150 touchdowns and he'd had 2 or 3 seasons with 2,000 yards rushing. He was that good. Barry Sanders' dad did not say Barry when he was asked that question. He said Jim Brown. When your own dad won't say you're the best and you're clearly the best, I thought that was funny. And that whole interview I did with them was about Barry Sanders' dad saying that. So.
Yeah.
But, Detroit's got Jahmyr Gibbs. I don't think anybody thinks they're ruining him. I like the way they're mixing it up with him and Montgomery. Montgomery's outstanding between the tackles. He's a much better running back than people think.
Yeah, after week, I think 5 or 6, I was happy with how they were using Jahmyr Gibbs. The first few weeks, I was a little worried, but then they found a good rotation between the two backs.
Well, no, what happened was Montgomery got hurt, and for 2 games, they had to use Gibbs the whole game. And so they developed confidence in his ability to play between the tackles and stuff. So then they gave him a little bit bigger a role. But still, everybody thinks, well, Montgomery's just a plotter. He had a 75-yard touchdown run. I'm sorry, you don't get a 75-yard touchdown run if you can't run. You just don't. Now,
no, I agree. I just think there was a game last year where Montgomery had like 27 to 29 carries coming off an injury, and at that game, I thought they ran Montgomery too much. I thought Gibbs should get more carries.
Yeah. But overall, I thought the mix was really good. If you're going to have a committee, I thought Detroit did it extremely well.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of what the Saints did with Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram.
What do you expect the Saints to do this year? I hear a lot of people think Kendre Miller may be the star in New Orleans this year.
Well, I've heard some things through camp that kind of have me worried that they're putting Taysom Hill at running back. So, because
gimmick play.
Yeah, so I know he gets yards, I know he scores, but it's just like they're just trying to force Taysom so much where they have other talented players on the team. It's kind of like you're just like forcing to give him the ball to get like him to get yards. And I'm actually surprised Sean Payton hasn't tried to like trade for him, because that was like Sean Payton's thing with Taysom Hill. He was really doing that. But yeah, I am excited to see what Kendre Miller can do. I think he had some injuries early last year, and just they need another running back. And I was surprised Jamal Williams didn't get that much run at New Orleans.
He was injured a lot last year too,
right.
And they're saying that he'll probably be the goal line back because he's the strongest runner of them, inside runner.
Definitely, he's definitely. That's what I thought he would do last year. So for some like best ball type charity leagues, I would pick Jamal Williams because I thought, there's going to be a game where he's going to have like 2 or 3 touchdowns. He just injuries and everything just did not allow him to get in there more.
So, Brandon, are you in the Scott Fish Bowl?
I am. I'm going to be at the live Orlando draft.
Orlando. So you live in Florida?
Yes, I do.
Okay. What part?
Jacksonville, Florida.
Okay. Do you go to any Jacksonville games?
Yes, I do. I've had season tickets, a bunch of years. Usually they disappoint me so much that I need a break and then I'll come back.
All right. Well, tell me, what's the outlook for Trevor Lawrence this year?
So I think last year, a lot of it had to do with, nagging injuries. He obviously, even when he was healthy, wasn't playing his best. I don't think he was making correct decisions. I think personnel-wise, they were trying to make Calvin Ridley like just a deep threat where that wasn't like his best thing. So I think that's why they got Gabe Davis and Brian Thomas Jr. And I think just being healthier and making quicker decisions, because I've always said sometimes Trevor holds the ball too long and he just needs to get it out to either Etienne, Ingram, and just get the ball moving because they have so many playmakers. It's just he's trying to always make the huge play, and sometimes you just got to take those small plays and move the ball down the field.
Yeah, to serve football, I'm not positive I'm right here, but I seem to think that Kendre was coming back from a torn ACL. and he just wasn't healthy last year, which is why he's still a crapshoot. But this is his second year back after that injury, so I think you're going to see a better Kendrick. Kamara's still in New Orleans, right?
He is.
So he's probably going to be the starter, I would guess.
Yeah, he'd be the starter, but I am interested because Kamara's thing has always been, he's at his best when they can limit, how many carries he actually gets. He's not the typical back where you want him to get like 20 carries. You probably want 10 to 15 and then some targets and everything. So I think they're looking for that second back to really get that going. And also, it was just a disaster in New Orleans last year. Derek Carr was not very good, going with injuries and just bad performance. So I think with a better passing game could open up more lanes for that running game as well.
So tell me, Brandon, what is your niche in your writing? What do you focus on when you're looking for stories to tell?
Yeah, so when I do Devy articles, I look for comparison pieces on players. And I look at not only the film aspect, but the analytics aspect. I like to look at everything. I know there's an analytics crowd and a film crowd, but I think you need a little bit of both. So I like to put that part forward too. And, just different things. I kind of try to look at, maybe edges where you can kind of look into the stats of like where someone moves to a different team and they might be more involved. So I always like to have lots of, different numbers or, to kind of back up why I would say to go pick up someone or why I think, might be time for to move on from that player.
So are most of your articles about Devy?
No, I actually do a little bit, of Dynasty and Devy and I actually do some redraft too and do some betting articles on props. I started that last year.
Do you enjoy doing that?
I do.
You need to talk to Iggy and JC. They're kind of big into the DFS and the props and things like that. And get into our Discord. It's free to get into. And I know that they're going to have a props channel for people who bet. I don't bet. So, I'll make personal bets with people.
Right.
But it's more, you buy me lunch or I buy you lunch. I think I owe JC dinner already. So based on bets last year, but I don't even remember what the bet was. So I love the fact that you came on. Tell the people where they can find your work.
Yes. So as we introduced, I write at DLF. I do, in the off season, I'm doing weekly Devy articles, and then also do some post draft profiles with league winners. We're actually moving more towards just talking about regular football than just fantasy. So I'll be doing some of the stuff with the Jads with them. So and you can find me, as it shows on the screen, at HayB3 on Twitter, and I'll be sharing all that on there.
Okay, so Brandon, I also got to ask you, personal question: married or single?
I am married.
How long?
6 years.
Kids?
No kids, but 2 dogs.
Well, that's your kids.
Yeah, there are fur babies.
And sometimes they take up more energy than the baby's baby.
Sometimes.
Okay, 6 years. Is your wife from Florida?
She is.
Now, I'm looking at your face, all right? Don't get racial with me. Where are you from?
Oh, yeah. I'm
Ancestry.
Right. I was born in Seoul, South Korea.
Ah, you're a Korean.
Yes.
I love Korea. I spent some time with the military. I wasn't in the Army, but I was teaching command and control to the Army, flying over and doing some work over there. So I like Southeast Asia. Philippines is one of my favorite countries, and my wife and I moved to Thailand for 16 months when we retired. Thai food is the best food in the world. Sorry, Korea. Thai food's better. And
I beg to differ a little bit, but Thai food is very good.
It's all fresh, no preservatives. And I've found that the Philippines people, almost all of them speak English, and they're some of the friendliest people I've ever seen anywhere in the world. I've been in 34 countries. Do you travel?
I've not traveled abroad very much, and just in fairness, I was born in South Korea, but I was actually adopted when I was 2 years old, so I don't remember anything from Korea. I do want to go and visit sometime, so that is plans. But yeah, I was adopted very young, so been in the United States, most of my life.
Do you still have family in Korea?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. Well, you need to find out.
I know. Yes.
I mean, seriously, because if you have family there, there's a chance you can visit there and have a place to stay, which really cuts down on your costs and makes it a lot easier. Plus, you'll have people that can show you around. So,
Right. Definitely.
when we went to the Philippines, I got online and made friends. And we basically had two young ladies from San Remigio come down to Cebu City and show Janie and I around the city. Just kind of tour guides for us. So when we went to Thailand, we kind of hung out with expats more than anything because we don't speak Thai. You know,
Right.
sweaty cop, and we know a little bit, but just what we picked up while we were there. Um, I got to tell you, fantasy football for a Korean dude seems a little weird.
Well, I like to say that I'm a white guy, trapped in a Korean body.
Yeah, I'm, I'm a white guy. I know. What am I? I'm a superstar trapped in a fat old body. I should be in the NBA dunking. I mean, I don't know why they haven't given me my $100 million contract. No, seriously though, you clearly love fantasy football. Have you made a lot of friends from the hobby?
Yes, I've since I started during the time of the pandemic, wasn't able to see a lot of people around me. So I made a lot of good friendships through working in the space, fantasy football. Made a lot of really good friends, and at the expo, I'm actually going to meet a couple of them for the first time. So I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, it's really cool. And if you want to meet anybody, hook me, just ask me. And if I know them, I will introduce you to them. Scott Engel, Bob Harris, Scott Fish, Bob Lung. These are guys that I kind of grew up in the hobby with, so we know each other. And I'll be happy to introduce you. I got to tell you, is there one guy, for me, it was Bob Harris, that has kind of been your muse, has been your mentor, that's kind of walked you through when you had a question about, should I say this or should I say that? Is there one guy that you go to listen to, maybe not even ask him a question, but just see if he's spoken on that topic, or gal? Because some of the ladies in this hobby are pretty sharp.
Yeah, I didn't really have someone like that. To kind of, so I think I've just kind of learned from my mistakes along the way. But I didn't really have anyone to necessarily reach out to, on my questions about in the industry, at least.
Well, you've got me now. Okay. I'm 68. You don't have me for long, but I don't know. Did I give you my phone number?
I think, yes, you did.
Okay. Keep it. If you ever need anything, call me because I will respond. Email me, text me on I keep saying Twitter, on X.
I still call it Twitter. I still call it Twitter too. So
I still call them the Redskins, for crying out loud.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Commanders. What the hell's that? So if you were to design your own special league, would the scoring be complex or simple? Would there be IDP or not? Would there be a taxi squad for Devi players? Your perfect league, how would it look?
So yes, there would definitely be Devi players. I personally would separate the drafts, have a short, maybe 2 or 3 round every year Devi. Have that before the NFL draft because there's that kind of dead period once the Super Bowl happens until the draft, so that gives a league something to do. Because I've been in leagues where just there's no activity and that's not any fun.
For 4 months.
Yeah. You just want to keep it going. So something like that. I've been in leagues too where there's just too many different scoring options. There's like, if someone gets 200 yards, they get this extra point, extra points for first downs and everything. I do like the tight end premium, but I would probably keep that as just a half point. I know some leagues, they put it up as much as 2 points, which I just think is too much. And I do like PPR leagues, so I would keep that as well.
Okay, so PPR standard 1 point for every 10 yards type scoring. Would you do decimal, like 1 yard is a tenth of a point? Okay.
Because I've seen too many leagues that don't do decimals, and there's been tons of, when there's a tie.
9 yards sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. I like to get every single little decimal of a point that I can get. It all adds up.
Well, I've been in leagues where I gave points for first down plays, for third down conversions. I've made really complex scoring systems trying to equalize wide receivers, running backs, quarterbacks, and tight ends in scoring so that when you went to a flex, it could be anybody. Right. I mean, the thing I don't like about super flex is they don't equalize the quarterback scoring. I would cut the quarterback scoring down maybe 20%, and that would make them more equal with running backs and wide receivers.
For some leagues, so they do that by making quarterback touchdowns only 4 points instead of 6.
Oh, so most of them are 4 points. Some of them do it with 2 points. So,
I mean, a bunch of mine, they're still 6 points. But have you ever been in a league where you have to start a head coach and a punter?
I'm actually in a Fantasy Cares elimination league, 3 of them. And they have a punter, they have a head coach, they have a team defense. And I didn't read the rules. They're 18-team leagues. Okay.
I'm actually in a couple of those. So, yeah.
You can start 3 quarterbacks, or you can start 8 of any single position or any mixture because there's no minimums. Anybody that drafted a defense in that format is stupid because defenses get negative points.
Right.
I was stupid because I went running back, and by the time the third round ran around, I got Joe Burrow in one of them in the first round. I got J.J. McCarthy in 2 of them in the third round. All 3 of them, my second quarterback is Justin Fields because there was not another starter anywhere.
Oh, yeah. I had a similar situation. One, I got a starter. I don't remember which starter it was. And then my second quarterback is Sam Howell. So I'm hoping that he starts in Seattle. And then one, I had to get Jacoby Brissett, which he'll probably start in New England. I don't know if he'll finish the season, but,
Yeah, 18 teams. And some teams took 3 and 4 quarterbacks. So, I don't blame them for doing it. They read the rules better than I did.
I agree. I didn't read the rules very well either, so I'm right there with you.
But I think in one of the leagues I got Jonathan Taylor. Bijan Robinson, Jonathan Taylor, and Derrick Henry as my running backs.
Oh, that's very strong.
Well, it's very strong, but I got J.J. McCarthy as my quarterback.
Hey, you just got to hope that he starts right away and that
I told you he's going to be the top rookie quarterback. He's going to be a top 12 guy.
I would love that just for all the people that were hating on him before the draft.
Yeah, I thought about taking Sam Darnold just in case.
Right.
But I said, hey, look, I'm not in this to win this because I would have drafted totally different. Yeah. But I'm in it to survive 4 weeks. In each of these leagues, I want to survive 4 weeks so I don't look like a complete idiot. Now, the way I drafted, I look like a complete idiot. But I got some good players. So hopefully I can string together enough weeks where I'm not the worst scoring team for 4 weeks in any. That's my goal. 4 weeks.
Well, I hope you meet that goal.
I do too, because it's embarrassing when you're a Hall of Famer and you don't read the stinking rules well enough to understand what's going on. Oh, I feel stupid. But I'm 68. I just say I'm senile. Prove me wrong. So let me ask you this. What are you looking forward to most at the Expo?
Yeah, I just think getting to see, because I've gone to the Expo 2 years before. So last year I didn't go, but the 2 years before I did. So just reconnecting with people, meeting new people. I think I've really, because the first 2 years I did not know anyone when I was going. And I have pretty bad social anxiety. So it was like a big jump for me. And I think I've continued to get better at that. So I hope, I've made real strides, because sometimes I get, anxious about walking up to people I've never talked to and everything. So I'm really hoping to move past that this time.
Well, Brandon, I've told a lot of people this, and they can testify to it. Anybody that has lasted 10 years in this hobby is a good person, because there are good and bad people that get into the hobby. There are users. There are people that will scam you. They don't last 10 years because reputations get out and then people ignore them. So the hobby is self-cleansing. If you go up to anybody at the expo and talk to them, if they don't talk back, you don't need to know them, because they're not worth your time. But I can tell you, the Hall of Famers, every one of them will talk to you. They'll take time and actually listen to what you say and then respond to you based on what you say. Bob Harris, one of the greatest guys you'll ever meet. He's on Sirius XM pretty much nightly, I think. He's busiest guy in football, and I love the guy. I really do. Scotty Engel. Scott Fish. True story. 3 times I met him at the expo and I forgot him. And I'd known him for years, but I'd never met him. So
right.
the face to name just didn't click with me. The man has shown me so much grace and patience. If I can do anything for him, I will. Bob Lung, again, excellent guy. These guys, they're good people. Go talk to them. And like I said, find me. You've seen my face now. I'll be hanging around the TSA booth. There's going to be a sports affiliation. I keep wanting to say authority. Sports affiliation booth. Find us there. Anybody that's at the booth can point you to me, and I will walk you around and introduce you to the people in the King's Classic. That's the big wig drafters.
Right, yeah.
I'll introduce you to any of them. We've had on this show Howard Bender, Jim Coventry, Bob, Scott, Scott Fish, Scott Engel, Bob Lung, and Bob Harris have all been on the show. Hutchison Brown from Football Guys. Young kid. I mean, Hutchison's 17 years old. Young kid, sharp guy. Jameson Hutchinson. Wendy, do you know Wendy and Carla?
I don't think so.
Okay, Wendy and Carla, I met at the expo. I was sitting in the bleachers watching Iggy beat up on some guys in flag football. I mean, he was playing NFL free safety, just running people over. And I'm talking to this blonde lady in the stands, and we're talking 15, 30 minutes, and she doesn't know who I am. I don't know who she is. It's Wendy Early. And somebody pointed out to her that you were talking to Greg Kellogg. Well, to me, I'm just Greg, okay? But to some people, I'm Greg Kellogg Hall of Famer. So she got all impressed with that. And then I met Doug Orth, and Doug and I had known of each other, but it's the first time we met, and he was with his girlfriend, Carla. Well, I started a women's league back in the 90s, women's only. It was called Ladies of Fantasy Football. And when I retired in 2016, a lady named Tina Gunter kept the league going. It's still going to this day. Longest running female only fantasy football league in the world. And I wanted to interview Tina. I tried to get the women of fantasy football to interview her, but they didn't know her and they had no real desire. So I said, well, I'll do it. But I wanted to make it easy for Tina because she hadn't really talked to me in 6 years. She knew who I was and remembered me, but so I wanted to bring on a couple ladies to help interview her. So I asked Carla and Wendy if they would help me, and they did. And so we interviewed Tina in one of our first episodes on this show, and Wendy and Carla helped me with it. and they enjoyed it so much they started their own podcast. It's called Game Changers on Wednesday nights, and it's not a hardcore fantasy football one, but they interview people and they get some great stories. They've got great chemistry. Highly advise you look up Game Changers and watch a couple of their. They get some great guests. I mean, Stefania Bell. Do you know who she is?
Yes, I do.
They got her. I got Mike Clay, who's also on air talent for ESPN. But Mike and I go back to before he was on air talent for ESPN. I've known him for, again, decades. So he came on. I got Howard, and I got a bunch of the guys that are on Sirius because of my reputation. These ladies have no reputation, and they got Stefania Bell. They've gotten Howard Bender. They've gotten Bob Harris. They've gotten Hall of Fame fantasy people on their show. So I'd highly advise you. You do a podcast?
I do.
Okay. Is it affiliated with anybody? Is it part of your website?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I was going to say, if it's not, talk to JC and Iggy because they're trying to expand their network. And they're always looking for talent. So if ever you want to appear on a podcast, you want to appear, if you start going into the Discord and talking DFS, I'm sure they would welcome you. I really am. And as I said, if you ever need me to do anything for you, call me. It's that simple. Are we doing okay? Oh yeah, it's 7:00 already. Time flies. So I'm going to have you once again tell the audience where they can find you. I know the Haye B3 on Twitter, but where can they find your written work? What website do they go to?
Yes, you can find me on DLF Dynasty League Football. I know some of believe my Devy articles are not behind the paywall, but some of the other rookie profiles might be. And through the League Winners, do a podcast with Tom, the owner of that. We do, a lot of fun topics. We do top fives of cartoons. We just did our top 5 sitcoms. So that's really lighthearted. And, it's usually a short listen, 30 to 40 minutes. So make sure to check that out.
I just had Pete say that I need a show on Sirius XM. Pete, I'm 68. Nobody wants to hear me on Sirius XM. I'm having fun doing this. This is just fine for me. I don't need to go further. I have fun with this. And Mel, thank you for that. I'm funny, but I don't try to be. My wife would have a different word for it. She usually looks at me, crosses her eyes, and says, "Oh, you're hilarious." So I know I'm funny because she's been with me for 47 years. So I got to be funny if she thinks I'm hilarious or something. Anyway, I want to thank you, Brandon. You're welcome to come on. If you'd like to, during the regular season, we're going to pick studs to sit and put me in coach players to play. If you want to do that in July or August, I'm going to start booking that out. Let me know. I will book you on a regular season that's more of a fantasy football starting helper, and we'll get you.
That would be great. I would love to do that.
Yeah, I think that's more what people think than this type of interview. But I think too many of the young people don't really know the people that built the hobby. Now, you build it from a player standpoint, but a lot of guys we have on here have built it from writing and content creation since the 90s. And those are the people that you need to get on your podcast. Okay, so you need to meet them. And I'll do the introductions at the thing. Anyway, JC, we're done. If you could take us out, I'd appreciate it.